Hello, Happy New Year. It's Heather Joy with Perfectly Curated Life. Thank you for joining me for my very first session of 2021. I'm so glad to be here today and thankful for this new year and all the possibilities that is going to bring. Today I'm going to be preparing a seafood risotto. And for music, we are listening to the sounds of Philadelphia. I posted a question on my Facebook page last night asking my friends which American city had the most influence musically, what had kind of like really defined an era or a genre with this music. So there are the obvious choices like Detroit and New Orleans and New York, but Philly really made a strong showing. A couple weeks ago, I did the music of Oakland, and today we're going to be focusing on Philly, and I will be visiting those other cities that I mentioned over the next few weeks. So tune in for that. Right now, we're listening to Patti LaBelle and Michael McDonald, who made a duet called On My Own. So let's get into this risotto. The first thing to explain is that risotto is really just a short grain, very starchy rice. It's called arborio rice. It's from Italy, and I'm going to take out one of the little grains. Most of the rices that I know of are both longer and leaner than this one. This one is short and stout, and it gives off a lot of starchiness when it's cooked. And so you stir it, and as you stir it, the starch comes off, and it makes a really creamy base. But the key is here, unlike other rices rather, that you either put on and steam or put on and boil for a little bit, this has to be stirred constantly. So this is not a put it on and walk away kind of dish. You have to stir it constantly for it to be able to reach its maximum creaminess and to cook properly. And you also don't add all of your liquid at one time. You add a little bit, you stir until it evaporates, and then you add more, and you keep going through that process until the rice is cooked in its entirety. So we have our rice here, and to start, we have some garlic and onions, some shallots, and some red and green bell peppers, a few chives, which I may use just for color, then lump crab meat, shrimp, and butter. For our liquids that we're going to be cooking with, we're going to use a combination of white wine and seafood stock. Now, I didn't know that seafood stock would be so hard to come by, but I have gone to like 4 or 5 different stores and searched those shelves and not been able to find it. I have seen vegetable and beef and chicken, but not seafood. So I actually ended up ordering this online, but you can find it. They do make it, but you just have to search for it. If you cannot find it, or if you're in a pinch and you just don't want to go through the trouble, you can use chicken stock or vegetable stock in this place. And then lastly, we have some Parmesan cheese, which we're going to add in at the very end of the cooking. So let's get started here. I have the eye on. I'm going to turn this up a little bit and add in my butter. And I'm going to actually cook the shrimp first and then set it aside. I want the shrimp to brown a little bit. So I'm going to cook that and then take it out when we're cooking the rice, because I don't want the shrimp to get overdone and tough. So now we are listening to Miss Jill Scott, Jilly from Philly. It's hard to believe how long her albums have been out, but I think Jill's first album came out now 21 years ago, and she's given us some great hits ever since. This song is Golden, and this came out in maybe 2004 or so. So quite a number of years by now. Okay, so our butter is mostly melted, and I'm just gonna put this shrimp in. Okay. And I'm not going to season the shrimp too much right now because I'm really going to develop the flavors in the risotto as it's cooking, so I don't want to overdo it with the seasonings in this. I will add a little bit of salt and pepper while that's cooking up. And you want to make sure that you have these in a nice flat layer and not piled on top of each other so that each piece can get brown. Okay, so my salt is here. So I was rushing to get all this prepped and ready so that I could film right after church because my dad goes to church. He goes to a physical church. I go to church online. And he comes back around 12:30 or 1. And I know the moment he gets in this door, he's going to be ready to watch these football games. And it seems like, I don't know if it's me, but it seems like every day now there's about 11 different football games going on. I didn't know there were that many teams. Apparently it's bowl season. My favorite day of the entire year is the day after the Super Bowl, like when it's just all over. I know that we have a lot of male and female football fans out here. I am not one of them. I love basketball, and I can tolerate a lot of other sports, but football is not my jam, and it just seems like the days are consumed with football. So my papa's coming home soon. He'll be watching these football games, but we will get this all done before that happens. So, our shrimp is cooking up nicely here. Getting nice and pink. And I'm going to add a little bit of pepper to this too. Oh. So this question that I posed about which city had the most influential musical legacy really brought out some of my friends who are music heads. And it was interesting the way that people framed their responses. So a lot of the responses came in from New York. And that's in some ways an obvious choice, even though there's not one particular sound that we associate with New York. New York gave us rap, which is now 40 years old and still going strong. And even though it originated in the Bronx and, kind of spread and grew up in Queens, you had LL Cool J and A Tribe Called Quest, and in Brooklyn, and you had Biggie. It has really kind of outgrown New York, and most of the notable rap hits right now are coming from the South, not from New York City. So it started in New York, but it certainly hasn't been defined by that city. Okay, let's see. And then, of course, you have Lady Gaga and all these other really amazing singers who are, in Barbra Streisand, who are from New York, but they don't have one sound like the Philadelphia sound or Motown that we associate with New York. So that's, for me, why it's kind of disqualifying to say New York is the city. Of course, I'm biased because I'm from Detroit, so for me, that's always going to be it. Okay, so I'm taking out the shrimp here. And we're just going to set this to the side. You definitely don't want to overcook your shrimp because it will get just too chewy and overdone if you cook it too long. A few more of these little puppies in here. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of oil. This is just regular vegetable oil. Let that heat up. And we're going to kind of do this like rice-a-roni. So I'm going to add my bell peppers to start. And bell peppers are just a kitchen workhorse because they add both color, texture, and a little bit of flavor. They don't have a strong flavor, but you can definitely tell when they're missing in a dish. So I'm going to salt this a little bit. Throw these flavors as we go. And as these are sweating, I'm going to add in my garlic and shallots and onions. I try to avoid adding the garlic first because it gets brown really quickly and it can burn, and when it burns it has a very bitter taste. So in order to avoid that, I generally like to add other vegetables first and then add in the garlic. Okay, so that's it. And we're just gonna let these sweat out and cook down a little bit. So getting back to Philly, you have Patty, but then you also have, these blue-eyed soul artists that we've talked about before, like Hall & Oates, who made just a slew of great songs, and they're from Philly as well. And then you have the production team of Gamble and Huff, who really created the Philadelphia sound, and who can be credited with that city's musical imprint. So Philly is in there. Plus, I didn't really count this in my playlist, but that's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air too, or Will Smith. And quiet as it's kept, much like MC Hammer, Will Smith has actually had some bangers. Most people don't respect him a lot as a rap artist because his songs were very pop oriented, but he had some really, really good songs. In the summertime classic, Summertime, which, no barbecue from June through August is complete without. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. Spread this down. Nice amount. Oh, so much steam. Haha. So those are now nice and soft and tender. I'm going to kind of push these to the side and add in my rice. I'm just going to start to stir this rice together with the vegetables. Now the goal here is not to brown the rice. If you're making some rices like rice-a-roni or anything in that family, you are actually trying to brown the rice. We're not doing that here. We're just mixing it enough so that it's totally mixed up and fully incorporated with our aromatics and our bell peppers. Okay? So, now this is where we start to add in the liquid little by little. Shake this up a little bit. Okay, and again, we're only adding this liquid in about a half cup at a time. So, put that in. Okay, now, I'm going to turn down my heat to medium. And when I say that you stir this constantly, I mean constantly. There's not a time when you're making risotto that you're going to be walking away from your pot at all. You need to make sure that those grains of rice are bumping up against each other and creating that creamy texture that is the hallmark of a well-made risotto. Okay, so this is a low and slow kind of dish. So I'm not going to bore you with 40 whole minutes of stirring rice. So what I'm going to do is let you go right here, and then I'll come back and when it's almost done and show you what it looks like, and then we'll add in the seafood and have a complete dish. So I'll see you in a few.